It's going to be interesting to see how many spaces are up for grabs in League One, because it doesn't look like there's going to be much wiggle room, albeit Huddersfield in sixth aren't in the best of form. Stockport County, newly promoted, have made some really good strides, even in spite of the loss of Louis Barry. Wrexham, of course, assembled a really healthy points tally as well, along with Wycombe Wanderers. And Charlton, of course, are one of the form sides in League One in 2025. So it's going to be very interesting to see where the room in the top six comes from, with Birmingham, of course, the runaway leaders. I nearly said champions, the runaway leaders for now, champions elect, some would say, not me. But I think I think anyone outside the top six is going to have to show impeccable consistency between now and the end of the season. Hoping to do that, though, are Leyton Orient, who have risen from the relegation zone as they were as recently as November, I think, or possibly October. Bolton Wanderers, of course, newly appointed Stephen Schumacher after that drama against Crawley last time out. Reading, who have a talented squad but remain question marks off the field. Barnsley, of course, who have been up there in that top 10 all season. Blackpool, who are in some good form under Steve Bruce, unbeaten in 8. Lincoln City, who missed out on the playoffs on the final day of the previous campaign. Hopefully, you can still see and hear this. Yes, hopefully. It looked like I was lost you for a moment there. And of course, Stevenage, who are very much the clean sheet specialists of League One. So plenty to get into in this League One podcast. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. Before we get started, you could do us a massive favour by hitting that subscribe button and getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. That would be a huge help. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host for the evening, Mr. Matt Farley from the Stevenage Football Club podcast. Again, experiencing a few delays on my end, so I'm not quite sure whether we can see or hear Matt yet. Last time it kind of flashed back up, so fingers crossed.
Are we on?
Are you there, Matt?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. We seem to be having some connection issues.
And by the way, I just want to apologise. The badge is on today, Gab, because this team's having another belter, mate.
Brilliant. I've literally no idea what's going on because I can only see a screen that's kind of stalled. I hopefully, can you see me, Matt? As I
can see you perfectly, mate.
Oh, right. Okay. That's really odd. So we'll just go with it for now. We will bring in Becky Trotman from the Sell Before We Die podcast on Reading. Sell Before We Die group. Sorry, I'm normally a podcast. But I just wanted to quickly touch on the big picture, Matt. How do you see the playoff scramble in League One so far?
Well, it's really exciting, isn't it? And by the way, can I just say it's a pleasure to be involved in this because, you know me, Gab. Like I come on your platform. I did it in the summer in Turkey. I had you on ours over near Christmas, and like for us, it's just about staying in League One, having a really good competitive season, getting revs over the line, and kicking on next season. So the fact that we're involved in this little, pod tonight, Gab, I'm so proud. It's my favourite squad. But no, I think the League One playoff scramble is very exciting, very open. And can we just add, you've got some big clubs in that scramble, right? You've got Bolton, you've got Barnsley, you've got Blackpool that have come with a little bit of a run. Lincoln City, who I think are hanging on by a thread at the minute. They probably haven't had the form that they would have liked over the last couple of months, right? So, it's a bit of an open book. I mean, Leyton Orient, Gab, you've been saying it for months. Leyton Orient. So it's an open book at the minute. I think it's going to be very exciting. I think it will be very open all the way to the end of the season for me. I will throw one team in there, though, that I think have got a great chance of getting in. Charlton Athletic. I think under Nathan Jones, and we played them Saturday, and they look like a completely different side to the one that we played when we beat them 1-0. Although that still was a massive win for us, but their form at the minute's one that needs to go kind of be noted. So I think it's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm delighted to say I can see you now. I need to press the Windows key, and that seemed to do the trick. So now I can see your lovely face, Matt.
Oh, Gab, stop it. It made me blush.
Well, delighted to be joined now by Becky Trotman from the Sell Before We Die group on Reading. Becky, thanks so much for your time this evening. We really appreciate it. I guess, as always, from the last couple of years, Becky, attention still on matters off the pitch more than on it.
Yeah, very much so. It's unfortunately still the distraction that nobody wanted, but it's there. We still have Di Young as our owner, who, to all intents and purposes, is the owner, but doesn't particularly act like one. It's disappointing. It's this whole circus off the field that we don't want. We don't want to be part of. Our objective for this season, most clubs, I think Matt's just said, for them it was about staying in League One. For us, it's actually about staying in existence as a football club.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're where we are in the league, I think, has come as a shock, a pleasant shock to most Reading fans, to be honest. We've got a paper-thin squad. We sold one of our best players in the January transfer window again this year. Obviously, we're under a transfer embargo, so we can't be buying in players to reduce the ones that are going out of the door. We're fielding 16, 17-year-olds in the starting 11 most weeks. Our bench is just full of players that, most of us as people that follow the first team don't recognise. These are really young lads who are having to step up and perform at a level that they never expected to be, and unfortunately in some cases that they're not quite ready for at the moment. Massive shock for us to be where we are. We're happy to be there, but it's all about survival in terms of just surviving as a football club really for us at the moment. But if we can do that and obviously maintain the League One status, that would be brilliant. Push for the playoffs would be amazing. Personally, I think we will struggle with that just because we're a couple of injuries away from disaster really, because our squad is so thin. And as Matt said, there's some pretty big teams pushing at the moment who are on decent runs of form. Ours is a bit inconsistent at the moment. If you'd have asked me in August, would you be happy with 9th in the table on the 13th of February, I'd have bitten your hand off, and I think pretty much every other Reading fan would have as well.
Do you know what? I'm going to bring in a bit early Parksy from the Low Down podcast on Leyton Orient, because we will touch on the O's in a moment. But I suppose, Parksy, this theme of really proud clubs being let down by the English Football League in terms of regulations, I guess that's something close to your heart given your experience with He Who Must Not Be Named.
Where do I start? I know this is called the EFL debate, and I know that you do get your interviews with people via the EFL or who work in the EFL. But frankly, the EFL as an organisation, even though Nigel Travis has backed the guys who run it, aren't fit for purpose. They haven't been for a while. Yes, there are instances where football clubs have been run poorly, and our situation was that we got some kind of crook in and he nearly killed our football club. There would have been people that have been supporting Europe 50, 60, 70 years that were potentially losing what in essence would be something that was culturally very dear to them and to their families. I mean, we've just had an instance of the football club being mandated to play Wrexham on Tuesday. Mandated. We've got 4 weeks where we haven't got a Tuesday game later in the season, but we've now got to play Wrexham, Bolton, Birmingham within 10 days, and have Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Do you think teams like Birmingham would get treated like that? No, the EFL are shocking. They don't support the football clubs. They don't care about fans, and anything they say, they just don't. You look at trends. I'm a very analytical person, Gab, as you know. I like my stats, and if you look at trends and you go every season, we have this discussion every season. Okay, the EFL do not care about fans. They care about what money they make and what the big clubs want, and what the Premier League want, and what the Emirates want, You know,
Mm.
this is it's just an ongoing trend. So you've got me really red. I came on here for a fight about being called an outsider, to be honest. But, you know, the EFL are not fit for purpose. And until there's a massive shake-up of the game, and because the big boys don't want the regulator, really, it will never change. And clubs like Reading, you know, they had a great benefactor in John Majeski for years. And as soon as he left, because obviously he had to, you know, it's just, oh, mate, it just... You're going to get me on the high horse, and there you go. You started already, so there's your 5 minutes.
Becky, is that the issue that we're having, that the regulator, which I think everyone agrees, the independent regulator is the right thing for football moving forward. The reason that seems to have been stalled is because you know, the top boys don't want it because it wouldn't suit their sort of purpose, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. You've probably seen it's been all over social media in the last week or so, the likes of Karen Brady and the stuff that she's come out with about, you know, there being no need for a regulator. She's viewing that from a very high up position, a club that isn't going through what Reading are going through. And as you've just said, it's all about what the big clubs want. They've got far too much power. The EFL are more interested in kind of what's going on higher up in terms of kind of paying their dues to the Premier League, really, than looking after the teams in the three divisions that they're responsible for. They're toothless at the end of the day. They've pretty much told us as a group of Reading supporters there is not a lot they can do to get rid of Dai Young. They looked at disqualification last year. It went to a panel of independent adjudicators. Who the hell they were and what they'd been looking at, God only knows, because they decided that there were no grounds to disqualify him and he was fine to carry on being the owner of Reading Football Club. He doesn't pay, or historically hasn't paid his taxes, hasn't been paying HMRC. We've had periods where the players, and more importantly than the players, the actual club administration, ground staff, etc., haven't been paid on time. Yet he's still considered fit and proper to be in charge of a football club, and it's a disgrace, and we just feel like they've just left us to it, essentially. They've come out with things about, well, you know, you knew the rules when you signed up to be in the league. You know, who's you? We didn't, as a set of Reading fans, we didn't sign up to be in League One. It's the place that Dai Young put us through his financial mismanagement and neglect, basically. We didn't sign up for any of this. And it's the fans that suffer. The players, I think, are suffering as well. Obviously, we had Ruben Sellers as our manager. An opportunity came for him to go to Hull in the Premier League, who, you know, was struggling in the Championship, who was struggling at the time, but that was still a better proposition than staying at Reading, because it's just a circus, and I don't think anybody could blame him for not wanting to be part of it. He's spoken quite openly since he left about what a struggle it really was being at Reading, kind of having to manage a lot of the off-field stuff, as well as obviously managing a team and getting the most out of them week in, week out. And yeah, just going back to the EFL, they're toothless, and yeah, they put him there. You know, they deemed him to be an appropriate owner of a football club, even though he'd already owned two previous clubs that had gone into liquidation. He was deemed not a suitable owner for Hull when they were in the Premier League. Yet the EFL decided he was okay to take over at Reading, and it's just been a disaster. And the club's gone into free fall since the second he walked through the door.
I'm just going to jump in quickly, Gab.
Sure.
Becky made a point about Karen Brady. This is West Ham United, a Premier League club that was given a stadium and they paid £2 million a year rent. They were given the stadium by the government. Okay, they were given the stadium that was within 750 yards of the boundary where they were allowed to be by Premier League rules of where clubs can move their stadiums to. They moved closer to Leyton Orient. They went within the boundary and they still got away with it. The EFL and the Premier League and the government are all in it together. Boris Johnson gave Tottenham a backhander to make sure that they didn't go and bid for the London Stadium, so that West Ham got it, right? It's all crooked. It's all crooked. And there are clubs like Leyton Orient, Reading, Bury that
Yeah.
have had to drop out of the league. Darlington, I mean, that was more about
Macclesfield.
not building a stadium. You know, Stockport have done it. You know, Torquay down there. We're talking about clubs that have got historical relevance in the EFL, and the EFL don't care. So, like, what do we do as fans?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a care issue. I think it might be partly a care issue with the EFL, but I also think it's partly a resources issue. So, in order to block somebody from taking over a club, you might need to have certain legal, financial resources and legal understandings in order to be able to fight that case to stop somebody from taking over, to prove that they're not a fit and proper person. And I think because the EFL as a governing body are actually very limited there, they would say they're more of a competition organizer. Sometimes there are certain things that they might in different circumstances like to be able to do, but don't necessarily have the wherewithal to do it. I think there might be one degree of that.
Goes back to unfit for purpose then, doesn't it? Which is what we've said all along, is what they are. They're essentially one thing. They're trying to be something else. They're not fulfilling their responsibilities, and something needs to be done. But unfortunately, I think there's at the moment too many people fighting against that regulator, and they're the one with the loudest mouths, and unfortunately, they're the ones with all the money as well.
We need to look at the German model of football. You know, the ownership in German football. It's exactly what Ali Hunis said about Bayern Munich charging €120 for a season ticket. We could charge everyone €350 for a season ticket, but what's €2 million a year going to do for Bayern Munich? It's not going to do anything for them, right? There's a certain level of fan ownership as well. Like, clubs are owned to a certain degree by the fans. There needs to be some kind of way that the fans can block people like this taking what is so dear to us. Like, a lot of people work Monday to Friday, go Tuesday and Saturday games. They're just waiting for those games. And the summer's horrible for them because there's no football. This is a beautiful game, and it's called the beautiful game for a reason. It's because it gives us passion. It gives us these, would Leyton Orient, if it wasn't here, have a day like Saturday against Man City when, frankly, we could have got something out of it.
Yeah.
They don't understand. So when I say care, it becomes a business model. It's them, they're running a business. They're not
football people. They're pen pushers and bean counters at the end of the day.
They would get more from the FL if they just accepted that the fans were important. They would make more money because more people that were fans that had money would invest more money. And there's lots of things about the UK model of football. And if we're not careful, the English game will go the same way as the Scottish game.
Well, that's the thing, Patsy. I think it's too late for the top of the English game to embrace the German model. I just think at the moment that just feels like pie in the sky, doesn't it? It doesn't feel realistic.
It's not the top clubs that are going under. It's not the top clubs that are going under because they'll always have buyers and they'll have people that invest because they're getting billions of pounds every year or so. It's the small clubs. The clubs, I mean, Birmingham weren't far from going under, were they? If they hadn't got decent ownership, but they were.
Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. With Chancery,
examples of classic football clubs with brilliant history, with passionate fan bases that get tens of thousands of fans every week. I mean, it's not just the 4,000 fans that used to turn up at Leyton Orient. Thankfully, we get 8 or 9 now. But it's these people that are not understanding and grasping what football does to the individual, to the family, to the collective. And they've got to stop. Someone's got to stop them. And if the government can't do it, then who the hell can?
Well said. Becky, just to finish off with Reading, obviously that's very much lingering on. In terms of the on-field matters, are you seeing something under Noel Hunt to get you believing that if the off-field situation could change, which is an enormous if, Noel Hunt might be able to build something because he's obviously very highly rated from the academy?
Yeah, he is, and he's hamstrung by lots of factors at the moment. The off-field stuff. I mean, that's even kind of filtered down to the state of our pitch at the moment. There isn't the money there for the ground staff to maintain the pitch properly. There's probably teams playing in the National League at the moment that have got pitches in a better state than ours at the SCL. But yeah, I think most of us have a huge amount of respect for Noel Hunt for stepping up and taking that job in the first place. It's obviously really, really challenging with such a thin squad, with so many young players in the squad. But I think what we do see is when those young players are coming into the first team, because they've played for Noel at under 21s level, he gets them and they get him, and they do fight for him. I don't think, while some of our performances haven't been brilliant, we can't fault the effort. And I think as Reading fans, we did have a few years where we did question the effort of some of the players that we had in our squad. But now we can at least say that they are giving their all. They are putting a shift in, week out. And some weeks that's paying off and we're walking away with 3 points, and other weeks it's just not. But it's not for the lack of effort. As I said before, we're only a couple of injuries away from a nightmare, really. We only need somebody like Nibs or Wing to pick up an injury, or get sent off and then end up missing 3 matches. And we're in trouble because we just don't have players in our squad to be able to step in and kind of fill in those gaps. But yeah, I think we're not necessarily seeing the best of Reading at the moment. We were doing better under Ruben Sellers than we are Hunt at the moment. I think you've got to take into account now that Sam Smith was sold in January, so he was our main man up front. We haven't got him anymore, so it's quite difficult to kind of make too many comparisons, I guess, between what we were doing under Ruben and what's happening now with Noel Hunt. But I think, like I say, he's getting those players fighting for the badge and fighting for the club, and as fans, that's kind of what we've been calling for.
Absolutely. Well, listen, well done to Noel Hunt. Becky, I'd encourage everyone to go and follow the Sell Before We Die organisation, because I think if you care about some of the matters that you and Adam have been talking about with regards to the ownership and governance of English football, I think this is a cause that everyone should really go and get behind. So thanks so much for talking to us. And
thank you. Yeah, it's not just about us. It's, they get a regulator. It's too late for us as Reading fans, but we've got rivalries with the likes of Swindon and Oxford, and we wouldn't want to see them go through what we're going through at the moment. So let's just try and make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Becky.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you, Adam, about, before I bring in Andy Simcox from Red All Over, just talk to you about Leyton Orient's form, because you were going to have, I've classed you in the outsiders section. It was mainly because you're not in
disrespectful, Parks, isn't it? Disrespectful.
Let's just look at the form guides of League Two, League One, and the Championship. Leyton Orient, Notts County, and Bradford are top of the form guide in the UK at the moment, and Birmingham and Leeds are below us. But if you're looking at the way that the league is going right now, we've lost one game in 13, 14. We've since we lost to Huddersfield, and I don't know if you saw my tweet. I think we've got 32 points, about 2.46 points per game. We have scored 29 goals in those games since then. We've kept 10 clean sheets, and all of this time we've had injuries to Dan Adjie, Ollie O'Neill, Omar Beckles, Dan Happy, these players that are very key to our squad. And we've had a great transfer window. You'll never have a more positive. I'm happy clappy, Gab. I'm happy clappy, but I'm not going to lie. When you asked me to be on and I saw it was outsiders, it kind of hurt a little bit.
I meant outside literally in the sense that you're outside the playoff places.
Well, you need to be more literal then, don't you?
Okay, right, yeah.
to be fair, I'm just
on the wrist.
To be fair, I'm still pitching myself a little bit that you've involved us. To be honest, oh my word!
I'm a bit offended that I've lumped you and Stevenage into the same bracket.
I'll take it.
Oh, Paxi. I mean, it's Ethan Galbraith. I mean, what a season he's having.
What a story. What a story. I mean, we've got this kid that was obviously released from Man U. There were teams in the Premier League that wanted to take him on. He would have gone into their under-23 team. He took a punt. He went to a League One team with an outstanding coach. But obviously, untried to a degree in League One. And he's thrived. He's playing at right back. He's playing in midfield. He's playing to the right, to the left. He's playing just behind. He's such a player. The fact that the ball turned down £1 million for him from Swansea. I mean, there's been reports it was 1.5 million.
Leyton Orient to reject
well, that's the thing, isn't it? There are rumours of a takeover or a serious investor, but we won't go into that because that's not been verified. But Ethan Galbraith is an exceptional talent, and I will go on record and say that he's probably one of the at least top 5 footballers in League One, or at least midfielders. And that is taking a big punt, because you look at teams like Birmingham that spend their money, and Wickham are obviously doing quite well, and Huddersfield and the likes. But Ethan Galbraith would probably get in every single team. And I think a football club would find a way of getting him in the team because he could play anywhere. So, you know, he has got he will get triggered an extension, I think, on his contract for another year. If we do get in the playoffs and if we don't go up, I don't see him being a Leyton Orient player next year. But Ethan Galbraith is an exceptional talent, and we're so lucky to have him at this level.
What have you made of Orient, Matt, from a Stevenage perspective?
I think they're doing brilliantly. Like, you got to think, like, you know, I remember you saying actually a few months ago, Gab, I think I just said it to you, you know, you were saying about Orient, and there was a lot of chat about it. If you actually had a look at their statistics in certain games, it kind of felt like they were getting unlucky in a lot of their early games that they were playing. Yeah. And you kind of felt that once they started, I think one of it was like the XG in the final third or something like that. If they started putting the ball in the back of the net more, they'd fly up the division, because actually the statistics all over the pitch had them in the top 10. And you kind of felt that with Orient, that if they got a little bit of form, they had the window coming up as well, that they'd fly up the division, and they have done. And I think they're doing brilliantly. And it's really funny, actually, Parksy, because I remember when we played you at home, and it was the most 0-0 game you could have. I think we even called it, didn't we? We were like, it'll be a draw, right? And it was like the most boring 0-0 you've ever met. But I remember having a chat on that pod, and you said potentially in a few months' time, you could see yourselves fly up the division. And it's happened like that. So I think they're doing brilliantly. I was having a look at their squad the other day. I had a look at some of the highlights recently today from Leyton Orient playing fabulous football. Do you know what? I actually watched a lot of the highlights from your match at Exeter, and I thought some of the football that you played that night was brilliant. And look, I think Orient...
You'll never see a better pass than what Donnelly...
Oh, it's beautiful, wasn't it?
Honestly, we won 6-2, but all the Orient fans could talk about was that pass.
Was that pass?
And that says a lot, right? The goals were exquisite. There were some great goals that night, but that pass from Donnelly, one touch, left-footed, across the pitch to Abdullahi for the second goal was absolutely...
Yeah, and by the way, I think the one thing about that as well, to score 6 at Exeter, you know, Exeter's a tough place to go. I mean, we actually, when we...
Is it?
Getting ideas. I missed the 7th in the league. Getting ideas from your station now.
But like Exeter's, like, you know, a tricky place to go. We went there, lost 2-0. It was probably our first kind of bad performance of the season. But they're a tricky side at Exeter. You look at some of the teams that they've played and done well against this season. So to go there and score 6 and to be the dominant. So no, look, I think we're having a fabulous season. Richie Wellens is obviously a very top manager, and I think. You keep people fit, you keep doing the things you do, and you're going to be right in the mix for it. I think I said to you earlier, Gav, I think the playoffs is going to be really difficult because you've got so many good sides. I mean, when you look at that playoff picture and you see, I know Charlton are in 5th at the minute, and you've got Huddersfield who well, originally I thought we're going to kick on with Joe Taylor, but he's got injured. They're now in the mix. You've then got Bolton, who I think are kind of... Yeah, Schumacher, they're going to get better. Then you've got Reading, who actually, I think Reading are doing brilliantly, actually, given, you know, the kind of off-the-field problems they have in the position they're in. You've got Leyton Orient right up there in the mix. You know, it's a tough... You know, Barnsley, forget about Barnsley. I know Barnsley haven't had the best kind of 2 months, but, you know, it's going to be a tough run. And I think they're going to be right in there, 1,000,000%.
How nice is it to not be talking about Steve Evans? Honestly.
By the way,
like a little turnip.
Do you know what I love? Do
I'd
you know what I
to
love
be in a
as
room with
well?
him.
Do you know what I love? Right, for us anyway, we got our 30th match on Saturday, and I swear, if someone would have said to me, Alex Ravel would be 3 to 6 points clear of Steve Evans, I'd have been like, oh, feels great.
I think what you got to look at in the playoffs, I think Birmingham won the league, right? So I know we had a bit of banter, but Birmingham won the league. They're going to win the league.
Yeah.
You're looking at Wickham; they're doing quite well. So it's going to be between Wickham and Wrexham. But I'll be honest with you, Wrexham isn't the team that worries me, and Huddersfield are not the team that worry me. The team that worries me in that playoff picture at the moment is Stockport, and a bit of Charlton. I said it earlier in the season. I said that Charlton would come good because of obviously Nathan Jones, and they're starting to motor a little bit. They've only lost one in the last 10. But I tweeted this before the Mansfield game, and I said that our next fixtures are Mansfield, Lincoln. It's always sunny in Deadpoolsville, Bolton, Birmingham, Charlton, Rotherham, and Northampton. I said if we get 12 to 13 points from them 8 fixtures, and we go into the last 10 games with, I don't know, 54 points, 57 points. Just like what I said to you, Matt, before Christmas with the fixtures that were coming over Christmas, and it came true that the way that the fixtures have worked for Leyton Orient this season is the first 25% of the season was really a little bit hard and tricky. And then the bit at Christmas was decidedly easier. Now we've got a difficult run of games. And then the last 10 games of the season, you're looking at Blackpool at home. Blackpool away, Mansfield away, Stevenage at home, Burton away, Wigan at home, Crawley away, Barnsley at home, Cambridge away, Wickham and Huddersfield the last 2 games of the season. That might be the stumbling block, is the last 2 games of the season. But by then, I'm being honest, and I'm happy clappy. I'll always self-professed. But I'm also, the way that it's been going, I can see us getting more than 12 or 13 points out of the 8 games that I quoted. So we've already got 3. So we've got to play some big teams. If we can take any points off of Bolton, Birmingham and Wrexham in the next 3 games after Lincoln, I feel that I've already told Jake on his podcast today that I can't see Lincoln. They've only scored 10 and they're letting 10 in the last 10 games. I can't see them beating us on Saturday. So I feel like that's going to be 6 points with 6 games of that little run to go. And then you've got Rotherham and Northampton in at the end of it. Charlton at home's a big game. If we can just take some points off the teams in and around us and get that 13, 15 points, we'll be going into that last 10 games probably needing, what do you reckon, Gab, 75, 77 points to get 6 minimum?
Yeah, I think it might be slightly on the higher end. You know what? Initially, I was thinking the Sandler in League One hasn't been at the level I expected, but now Charlton are finding form, and now Bolton have got Schumacher, and Stockport are picking up again after losing Louis Barry. I'm actually thinking the bar might be a bit higher. So, yeah, I'm thinking possibly 78 gets you in the top 6.
Do you know what, though? I was going to say something here, chaps. I've got the table up in front of me, and I know, obviously, we categorise 6 as obviously that last place in the playoffs. But Leyton Orient are only a 1 win off Charlton with a game in hand.
Yeah.
Like, my point is, like, you can get to. There's an opportunity for them to actually get 5th or 4th.
We're 2 point. We'd be 1 point behind Stockport because we have 2 games in hand on them.
Yeah. So I think the aim for Leyton Orient, oddly, because I know this is unbelievable, when you start saying top 5, top 4, aim for 5th and 4th. And cement it properly. I know it's tough, and you got.
We're going at 2.5 points per game, Matt. Right? So
yeah,
in the last 13 games or whatever, 2.5, 2.46, so 2.5. Let's just say we get 2 points a game. We're gonna get 34 points from that. You give us 81 points, we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right, and that 2 points. What I'm saying is, that's that we could lose to Birmingham, Wrexham, Bolton, and we could still beat Charlton, Northampton and Rotherham, and suddenly you've got 15 points from 8 games. You're just under 2 points a game, but then our points per game will still be over the last 20 games, still be well over 2. And then we go into that last 10 games where we can lose 4, win 6, and it's suddenly like still 1.8. It's just one of those things, and I think the investment that's potentially coming as well, the players that we've got in. Swansea have done a wrong un by selling Abdullahi to us. He's obviously a very good player. Makonde is on a roll from being loan on Chesterfield, and now he's obviously with us. Jamie Donnelly's becoming a player that probably Spurs
Yeah,
would like to have in the
proper
squad.
in form last couple of months.
You know, Kelman's firing. Jordan Brown is back on fire. The Lord Jordan Brown is back on fire. And, you know, thankfully, Randall Williams scored an absolute screamer on Tuesday, like on his debut. Amazing.
That's
Jack
a great
Murray,
signing, by the way. That is.
great signing.
Great signing.
You know, people were getting a bit funny about Reg in the back getting that lad in, but you know, he played really well. If we can start blowing teams away in the first half an hour and doing what we did against Mansfield, and then relaxing for the rest of the game and getting players on and off and making sure we're resting them, then this little, you know, trip to Wrexham on Tuesday. I mean, if out of the 3 games, I fancy us to beat Wrexham. If you're being totally honest with you, because every game I've seen of them this year, they've been very physical but not very fluent, and I think our kind of football will absolutely rip them to pieces. Bolton potentially, Birmingham is going to be a tough ask on a Tuesday night after you've just played them 2 teams. So yeah, who knows? It's I did mock you a little bit, Gab, when you said you could see Leyton Orient putting a playoff run together, because I just wanted to try and be the half empty kind of guy for a change. But let's be fair, like, we couldn't have seen it coming the way it is. And I interviewed Richie just before Christmas. I think we just won a game against Bristol Rovers, and he was very confident. And you know, you can't argue with the guy. He's got the fans in the palm of his hand. The board love him, and they will do anything they can to help him succeed. He will be a Championship manager next season, I feel. I'm just hoping that we get to beat Wrexham at Wembley. Because could you imagine it's not about who we want to play, but could you imagine the kind of media build-up, all about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McKennelly, and did Blake Lively have a problem with Justin Baldoni, and all kinds of stuff that will be coming out because of Wrexham, and Leyton Orient going stuff them 4-0 at Wembley in front of 65,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Wrexham or the fan base's fault that they get this.
No. I'm just talking about the exposure. We're talking about the exposure, not so much about what I've just said. So any Wrexham fan who wants to come at me with that, I'm not saying anything about you guys. You went through the mire, and you deserve every little bit of happiness that you get, just like Leyton Orient and eventually Reading will, and teams like that. But what I'm saying is that the media exposure for Wrexham being at Wembley will be so intense that when they lose to Leyton Orient's name will go in the stratosphere, and then we'll get relegated next year from the Championship. So it's what it is.
Do you know, I was just thinking, in that player file, you'd have Wellens in one dressing room, and then in the other dressing room, you'd have Channing Tatum dancing on tables promoting coffee brands and drinks. No, what is this?
It's genius. It's genius, but like,
it was.
It's like, what are you, footballers, or are you extras in a next Ryan Reynolds movie? Like, it's a bit of a circus, and they've got some really good players there. Phil Parkinson is a good manager. They probably need someone a little bit different, I feel, if they're going to be successful, though, because if they don't go up this year, and I've said this before on this EFL debate as well, that when the financial fair play rules change again next year, this is why it's really important that Birmingham go up, because of the amount of money they spent. Now they're going to go. It seems very obvious that they're going to go up. The amount they spent will then change to obviously Championship standards, which will be totally different. But there are some tides in the division that have spent way over their means, and if they don't go up this year, they're going to have to cut their cloth. And Wrexham will be one of those teams, regardless of how many Delta Airline deals they can do or TikTok deals they can do. They will have to cut their cloth accordingly. So a lot of teams have gambled this year, which will kind of impact the way League One is next year. And you know, if Orient don't go up, and we still got Richie Wellens, and we maybe have more investment, this squad will do some damage, because they'll be 1 year older and they'll still be young. So you know, I think it's a great time to be a Leyton Orient fan. It's a great time to watch Leyton Orient. I think as a football fan generally, and watching good teams of the past, I'd like to think of us as an entertaining football team, a driven football team, the team that works together. And I think anyone who comes to watch Leyton Orient, apart from maybe the Stockport game, will say that they've watched a really good footballing team with some great players and some great potential.
Absolutely. Parksy, thanks so much for joining us, and everyone go and get subscribed to the Lowdown podcast.
Cheers, guys.
Man. Delighted to be joined now by Andy Simcox from Red All Over.
Go on, Andy!
We've got the gang together.
Thank God you've got rid of Parksy. Flipping heck. I couldn't have got... Dear God. Do you know what? If Arsenal weren't
you're
in
18
London...
minutes later than I had you on scheduled, Andy.
Don't worry about it.
Well,
You know, if Arsenal weren't in London, Leyton Orient would be the Arsenal of the South, wouldn't they?
oh,
Dear God. They're not. They're not all that, are they? They only beat us 4-0 at Oakwell. It's only 4. Goodness sake. Hardly a thrashing, is it? So I think he's a bit buoyant, isn't he? God, he's getting a bit carried away. He's going to beat Wrexham in the playoff final 4-0. He's getting a bit.
All I'm saying, Andy, it'll be us there. I don't want to just,
He's getting a bit above his son. I don't know. Pride comes before a fall, Gabe. I'll tell you that. We were on the crest of a wave at Christmas. 4 straight wins against good sides. The transfer window to come, where we were going to strengthen, particularly up front, and we didn't. And we've lost 4 and drawn 1. So it can change in a heartbeat. So I hope it don't, because I like Leyton Orient. I think they're a decent, and I like Parksy. He came on our away and show, and he obviously weren't as good as Matt Farley were on our show.
Yeah.
Couldn't be, could he? But I'm glad he's gone, because I couldn't have coped with being with him and Matt both at the same time. My God, I'd have struggled to bring the positivity down a notch, wouldn't I? God, gracious me.
And you know me, Andy, I'm just buzzing about my team. I always am, mate.
I know. And you, Gabe, don't take that rubbish from Parksy about, well, why have you got us in? Because you're 7th, Parksy. You're 7th. You're out of the playoff. Just get him told. Don't take it. Well, yeah, I see what you mean. You're all that nonsense. I can see what you mean. You've got games in hands, and you could finish above everybody, couldn't you? And all that. Don't give him any of that nonsense. You're on this show because you're 7th. You're outside of playoff places. So, get him told. I love him to bits. He was wonderful on our show. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm only kidding, Parksy. Don't take on. I'm only kidding.
No, we love you. We love you, Paxi. Andy, what in terms of that 1 point from the last 5 games? What do you think has been the difference between that 4-game winning streak and the recent drop off in form? And what's caused it? Do you think?
Oh dear God, where to start? I know I'm on late. How long you got? How long's this show going on for? Because it could.
We're going till 9 o'clock, Andy. So take your time, mate. We'll get a glass of wine.
It could take a while. No, I'm going to blame it all on the weather. We had a game called up against Northampton. It all went belly up after that when we came back. So
it's the Leyton Orient game as well. You lost 4-0 to them with the weather as well.
That's only win. Close. It was close. We're only 4. Well, tell you what, we were awful. I'm not going to go on about it because I'll just start crying. It were awful. The weather were awful. It hammered it down with rain. The wind. It were when things were at its windiest, and Leyton Orient did what they should do. They played to the conditions, and we didn't. I think the big change has been, as a thing, it's all positive, isn't it? 4 games on the trot that we'd won. Christmas and New Year, we'd beaten Wrexham, Bolton, who even they're still a good side. Peterborough, although not doing so well, are still a good side, I believe. So we're all looking good. With the transfer window to come, we needed to kick on, and what we certainly did, and we've needed for 2 years, as at least one proven, experienced striker, probably 2. Well, 2 now, but probably at least 1 just to kick on, because the game where it all started going downhill, particularly when we played Bristol Rovers and lost 3-1 at Bristol Rovers. We created so many chances to win that game. But similar to the Bristol Rovers game at Oakwell in the Cup, we could not put everything bar scoring. We could not put it in. We've seemed to have got into a bit of a trend where if we're going to create a chance, whether it's a header or a shot, let's do it straight at the goalkeeper. Because goalkeepers that are playing against us at the minute don't have to dive, don't have to do, just stand there and it'll come to them. It's like on a piece of elastic, straight to them. So we just can't score. And then at the other end, we've, Blackpool clown Charlie Caroli sometimes plays for us, I think, because we've got a mistake in every single one of our defenders. None more so than we saw when we lost at Stockport 2-1. In the first half, a dreadful mistake by Donovan Pines, who's a big, strong lad, and he got brushed off it easily and finished up on his backside. Easy goal, 1-on-1, easy goal. And then a ridiculous attempt to penalty. They were free on the right-hand side all the time, and Josh Earl, who's not a left back, is a left wing back, not been having a great set of performances recently. Wrong side of him, nowhere near him, clipped him, and down. He's gone 2-0. And it's all uphill. We started a new striker who doesn't speak English. I'm playing the English game. I've no idea if he's any good or not because he didn't get any service. The second half, we reverted back to our normal formation instead of like a 4-4-2. We went back to our normal formation and looked a lot better. But we made the thing that we haven't got the strikers. We've got Humphreys injured. So we bring Ferrugia on, who's a good player. I do like him. He's a left wing back. We played him up front because we haven't got anybody else to play up front. Got Joshua Dyer, who's Bruce Dyer's son, who's a young lad, but he clearly don't think he's ready. So it's we're trying to get somebody apparently from the free market, but we've had we've not just had a month to get somebody. We've had a year and a half to get somebody, and we've got Stephen Humphreys, alike, but that's all we've got, and it's simply not enough.
You've never replaced Norwood, have you, Andy?
No, it's ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. When we are any disrespect to any other team, Lincoln can get James Collins, who I rate. Well, he always scores against us anyway. Bolton can just buy anybody that they want. Wrexham can seem to buy anybody that they want, and we're just diddling about, not getting anybody of any great note that would have kicked us on. So Darryl Clark has said very clearly he needed reinforcements to freshen things up, particularly up front, but reinforcements, and it's sadly been not forthcoming. I'm not going to be awful about the transfer window because Gauchi, who's come in the goal and loan from Villa, I think he's going to be a good goalkeeper for us.
Right.
There's all sorts of stuff about Ben Killip that he left, and people were upset. The start of the season, people were saying he weren't good enough, he were rubbish. He played well in the last few matches. Gauchi commands the area, which is the first time for a long while. I'm glad we've got him. I feel sorry for the way it happened with Ben Killip, but I'm glad we've got Gauchi, because from a personal point of view, I cannot abide goalkeepers that dance about on the line, leaving for defenders to head it clear. I want the goalkeeper to come out and say, yeah, have it, and clear the ball one way or another. None of this pussyfooting about leaving it to the people. So I'm glad he's coming. Ferrugia came in right at the start, and he got injured, but he's back. He's on his way back, and he looks a decent attacking left wing back or left winger even. And we brought in, I'm going to struggle to pronounce his name, Dexter Lembikisa.
Yes. Rotherham United, wouldn't he?
No, he's a Wolves player, but he played on loan to Rotherham United.
Right, yeah.
Now I've got obviously, because I live near Rotherham, I've got close mates who support Rotherham who say we're really good for them and want to be.
Well, he's good going forward, not so much defensively, but maybe in a different system where he's playing as an attacking wing back. Yeah, that might.
Well, he came on against Stockport. My Wolves fan Martin, he says he's a really good prospect, a really good player, and he showed it against Stockport. So I'm quite pleased about him. So that's three that I'm quite pleased about. And we said goalkeeper, wing back, and a striker. We've got in Clement Rodriguez.
2 out of 3 ain't bad this time, to quote Meatloaf lyrics, Andy.
Can't help yourself, can it? Just for you. Just for you. He might be a good player. He didn't get much service against Stockport in the first half. Came off at half time. It's going to take him a while to settle, and that's not fair on him because he's put him in the firing line, and it's not great. Whether it's the manager, whether it's the board, whether it's the whole lot, it's not good at this minute. And we've got a similarly out of form Huddersfield coming to us who keep beating us. At their ground, they absolutely wiped us out. It was 2-0, but they wiped us out there. We were absolutely awful there. With a heart-to-heart among the players and kick-started it again. So I hope we kickstart it before we play them this time, because it could be 0-0 or 7-0, because it sounds like neither of us can defend that well. So looking forward to it with trepidation, because for us, we've dropped from 5th and it's all looking good, and we're looking up, and well, I weren't looking up, so never look up. I'm not like Matt. I just think it's not going to happen. I always look below you and just hope that teams below you lose. Don't care about them above us. Don't care about catching them. If we could stop in playoffs and everybody else below us lose, that's good enough for me. But a lot of fans were looking up, and we're going to finish second and all that. So you get giddy, don't you? Yeah, people get giddy, a bit like Matt. Not as giddy as Matt, but get giddy. And we've just down to 10th and dropped like a stone. 6 points away from Huddersfield, who are in that last place currently. Not Leyton Orient, who happen to be 7th. Big game on Saturday. If we lose, then 9 points away, and it's a huge game. It could well be, and is likely to be, all over as far as any lingering, far-fetched hope of the playoffs. If we lose, if we win, who knows? Anything could happen. Could kickstart us off again. Don't know.
I was going to ask you actually, Andy, about the manager, because I remember speaking to a few people about it when we come up. Do you think Clark? I think he's a really good manager, obviously, But do you think like he's out of his depth a little bit in managing a club the size of Barnsley?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I think opinions divided. Some people think that he's lost the dressing room, but if you lose a few games, you've always lost the dressing room. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not. It might be. I don't know. Some blame the owners for not backing him, or the board owners, same thing, backing him in the transfer window this January. And I think there's some truth in that as far as proven goal scorers are concerned. He started the season changing the formation, right, left, and centre, changing the personnel. I can't remember who it was against. We had one game. We changed formation during the game about 4 times. Early on, I can understand it a little bit, because you need to find out what formation your players can play in, what's the best for the crop of players that you've got. There are a lot of change, people playing out of position here, there, and everywhere. And sadly, against Stockport, having lost 3 and drawn 1, so, I understand wanting to freshen it up. He tried something different. Mark Roberts is suspended, got 1 more game to finish from being sent off. So he played a back 4 and put Josh Earl at left back and had De Givini and Pines in the middle. They can't do it because they bomb on. They both bomb on,
Right, yeah.
Pines can stay there, but De Givini needs to go forward. Mile needs to go forward.
We've not played a back 4 since maybe Struber, possibly.
We played it early on this season. It was rubbish.
No, but as a back 4 hasn't been your default formation. I think since.
If you're going to play back 4, you need to play. I think you need to play with at least one winger, one proper winger, and we haven't had a winger for. I can't think of a proper winger since Adam Hamill left, to be honest. There might be one that I can't remember. So we've not been playing with that. We've been playing with wing backs bombing on. So I understand wanting to try something different. And in fairness to him, he did come out after the game and said the first half was on him, because it was a shocking performance.
He's very honest like that. He'll say,
they're all over the place.
Okay.
So, but you can say that. Some people like his honesty, but I think it depends how far you go. I like honesty. We've had a few managers that would, I'm not going to say quite toe the party line, but do a Steve Evans, say, we were wonderful, we should have beaten them 6-0, even though we lost 6-0, we should have beaten them 6-0. Or referee. I do that. That's for me to do. It's very honest. But sometimes it's a very fine line between being honest and saying, I can say it. Pines made a dreadful mistake. Earl made a dreadful mistake. 2-0 down. That's game's virtually over. But we made a bit of a fist of it in the second half. There's a thin line between telling it how it is and calling people out and chucking players under the bus. And I would say for anybody, you need to be really careful and tread that line very, very carefully. And sometimes, for me, and it's only me. Sometimes I feel as though it's going to be over. You know,
Mm.
people were asking him, and I understand defending, so people were asking him why Joshua Dyer didn't come on, because he's a striker. He was the only striker on the bench, but he brought Ferrugia on to play up front, and he said he's not showing enough in training. No, Joshua Dyer's a young lad, and he's on the subs bench, and he can go one or two
You
ways.
could have just said tactical, and left it at that, couldn't you?
If you're if you're a young lad, it'll affect you one way or two. You'll think, oh, stuff that, or you'll grit your teeth and think, right, I'll show you. Now he knows him better than I do. I'm hoping that Joshua's going to get the bit between his teeth and show more in training than if that's what he needs to do to get anywhere near. But to sit there and have to listen to that when you've not played any part in it, I'd think, well, why have you put me on the bench then? That's what I'd think. Yeah. Well, why have you bothered then? Don't bother picking me again then.
Andy, it's been great to have you on, and hopefully catch up with you later in the season.
Oh, I'd love to, especially if we get near to 17th place. I'd absolutely love
I don't know whether that T-shirt's going to stay as Gab got it wrong. That's going to change.
Do you know what I'm going to say, Andy? You're going to be in those playoffs, mate. I'm
love you,
cool
Matt.
with it.
I love you.
Do you know what? Do you know actually? I'm so happy you're on. Actually, Andy, I was driving home from when we played you, and one of the lads was on his phone, and he's gone to me, Matt. Oh yeah, Andy's speaking about you on YouTube. What? And he showed me the video. I'm not going to try. No, I will try the northern accent, Andy.
Go on, make a fool of yourself. Go and have a go.
I'll do it for you because I love you that much. and just he shows me the phone. He says, with the microphone standing, I hope that Matt Farley enjoyed it. Going back down in the car. I hope he enjoyed that one. I was like, that is brilliant. I was like, yes, we are. But...
As Gabe Sutton would say, Boston.
Oh, brilliant.
I did. I remember it well because I knew you would be. I knew you would be on our instant reaction straight after the game. Especially, you're not the only club that scored in injury time against us at the time. It's become a bit of a party piece of ours.
Yeah.
I'm thinking on another boring 0-0 drawn, up the pop and smack it in it. Seconds to go. Oh dear! I knew you'd be happy going. Long way home for you, Matt. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I was over the moon. But no, it did make me laugh. That video. I was like, he's done it on YouTube. It was brilliant.
I always drag you into rubbish. I
love it.
I always drag you in.
It's that. But Matt Farley. I thought, yes.
Andy, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much for coming on.
Take care, pair of you.
See you later, Andy.
And everyone go subscribe to Red or Laver on YouTube. Delighted to be joined by my next guest, which is Rob Walker of the Tangerine Army. Good evening, Rob. Hope you're keeping well.
Okay, kick me off, please. I don't want to have to talk to him. Can you kick me off?
Okay, all right. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks yourself.
Yeah, very well. Thanks. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you waiting as well. Just wondering, Blackpool are on a bit of an unbeaten run at the moment. So do you feel like you're in with a squeak of the playoffs?
Well, it's more of a drawing one, isn't it, rather than unbeaten run. I think that's 7 home draws on the bounce now. We've not won since September at home. So stats can always be sort of used in certain ways. But it's been like almost with Blackpool this season, I think. There's been a lot of games where we could have won, could have, should have. So it's been frustrating. We're not far off, but a lot of games seem to have sort of bypassed us, and we just can't seem to turn them draws into wins.
One thing I found, Rob, because I saw you at St Andrews at the end of December, and I was expecting Steve Bruce to go to St Andrews, where I don't think many teams have taken points. I think Reading got a point against us on the opening day, and somebody else, Northampton, managed to get a last-minute equaliser at our place. I don't know if anyone's taken and your lot, but I think I was expecting him to basically go there and park the bus. But what I thought Steve Bruce got really right was this kind of balance in terms of the line of engagement, where it's not like you were too cavalier and left yourselves open, but it wasn't like you just invited us onto you either. I thought you get the sort of the level of pressing right. It looked like kind of a mid block, and I'm wondering if that's generally been one of your strong points under Steve Bruce.
Yeah, it seems to be away from home where we're our best, where we're sort of in a bit of a lower block, and then on the transition, we've got the pace with players like Hamilton, obviously Joseph before he left, Rob Apter.
Oh, I like Rob Apter. Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah, good player.
That we can hit teams on the break, and that's what we tend to do. So there's probably a reason why our away form's been pretty good. It's sort of roles reversed from last season where we were terrible away from home and brilliant at home. It's been a bit of the opposite this season. So I think when teams come to Bloomfield Road and maybe sit a bit deeper and sort of play five at the back, it has been a bit frustrating for us to break those teams down, and we don't seem to have that killer instinct which a lot of teams at the top tend to have. So I think we're 7-8 points off the playoffs. I think it could easily be that Blackpool could be in the playoffs, but games have just seemed to. I feel like I'm repeating myself in that there's been 20 games left, 19 games left, and we just can't seem to get that win at home that I think will hopefully start the chain effect. I think Blackpool have got our last 16 games. We've got 10 games at home. Any other side would be absolutely biting your hand off saying 10 games at home, but probably it's going to penalise Blackpool because we're so much better away from home. I think in terms of playing against the big boys, we played Wrexham away. I think that's our only defeat in 13 or 14 games, and even that was a very, very dubious handball against Oliver Casey. It hit his back and they gave Wrexham a penalty in the 90th minute, and we lost that game 2-1. And first off, Blackpool probably the better team. Yeah, second off, Wrexham did dominate the ball, didn't create a lot. But certainly against the top teams, Blackpool, can certainly hold their own, which is encouraging. It seems to be when we play the teams that are sort of towards the bottom that we do struggle to break them down.
Matt, what have you made of Blackpool this season?
Yeah, I think Rob's given a really good assessment there. Do you know what? I was looking at the statistics earlier. It's interesting you've mentioned that, Rob, actually, about the home and away, because I've seen, what's it, 50, I think is it 15 points at home? I think it is, isn't it?
It's not many. It's about 2 wins, I think.
Yeah. And I think the away form, you got like 25 points. It's like polar opposite. It's such a shame because if your home form was just similar, you'd be 6th or 7th. Do you know what I mean? But I think you got a really good side. Do you know what? I remember the and it's funny you said about the draws because we drew at your place as well, 0-0 at that point afternoon. I thought you were a really, really good side, and you meant about the killer instincts, and I think you could see that when we played you, that you just lacked that killer instinct. I think. But yeah, it's tough, isn't it? And I was saying it to Gab earlier about when you look at the teams from, I mean, even higher than Charlton, but Charlton all the way down to like 14th, 15th. There's so many good sides. And any other season, I think you'd be super confident that Blackpool be right up here in that mix competing. But because the league's so difficult this season, you've got so many good sides, it's really difficult to suggest that, I think. But I think Blackpool got a very good side. I think Steve Bruce is great. I think he's fantastic. I remember actually when he first came in and you had that really good run of form. And obviously those sad, unfortunate events that happened after and he went away. And I think he's done a really, really good job. So, no, I really like Blackpool. Again, I think Apter's a cracking player. I think he's brilliant, Apter. I was going to ask, actually, are you, I don't want to say gutted about Jordan Rhodes going out on loan, but is that someone that you probably wanted to keep just for the fact of,
football's a funny game, isn't it? Because last season he was our go-to man. He came in and just set the world alight. He was fantastic. I think with Jordan Rhodes, obviously, if you've not supported a club he's played at, you sort of just think Jordan Rhodes goals, but he's actually a lot more than that. I thought his work rate was phenomenal. He chased lost causes. He was a real team player, which you don't really associate Jordan Rhodes with. Unfortunately, he got 2 injuries in January and February, which sort of ruled him out for the season. And then this season, he's come back and just not quite looked the same player. He seems to have lost sort of half a yard of pace. Not that he had a lot of pace in the first place, but he's been warming the bench, not getting much game time. So it was almost inevitable that at his age, he's going to want to play games, isn't he? I mean, he travels in from West Yorkshire. He doesn't actually live in the Foul Coast. So, if you're travelling in, to training 3-4 times a week and then not playing, it must be frustrating. So I don't think Blackpool were looking to sell him. I think it was more of a case of Rhodes going to Steve Bruce saying, look, I'm not happy. I need game time. So I think it was almost like a fair decision, to let Rhodes go to Mansfield. I think it probably has left us a little bit light because obviously we lost Kyle Joseph to Hull City, which wasn't really planned. I think that sort of developed very quickly. and eventually Hull came back with a price tag that suited Blackpool. So you could probably say we are a striker down. I mean, we signed Tom Bloxham from Shrewsbury, who can play out on the wing, but has been playing up front. Well, he's injured now, so it only leaves us with 3 fit strikers. We've got Niall Ennis on loan from Stoke. We've got Fletcher, and we've got Jake Beasley, who's come back from injury. So maybe we'd like to keep Rhodes as a 4th striker, off the bench, but if he's not going to play and the player's unhappy, then it's probably best to let him go and play some games somewhere else.
I was going to ask as well, Rob. It's interesting to hear about Rhodes as well, because I did think a similar thing to yourself when he got obviously laid down to Mansfield. I was going to ask, what has been that difference home and away? Because again, when I was looking at your away kind of record early, I think you're in the top 6. I think for your away form, but then the home form is, I think, it's in the bottom 3. Is it the way that you just set up? You kind of play better away from home, or is it because I just find that so weird how it's just polar opposite home and away almost?
I think we just seem to play it better against the better team. So I think away from home, obviously, traditionally, you expect to have less of the ball, so teams come at you. I think even at home, when we played the better teams, so for example, we played Huddersfield Town not that long ago. We went 2-0 up, and first half we were probably the best we played this season. And barring a mad 5 minutes where Huddersfield scored 2 goals, Blackpool should have won that game and didn't. We've played really well against Wickham in the season. We drew that game 1-1 and probably should have won that one. Yeah. But then the teams are expected to play. I mean, Stevenage game, and we'll talk about Stevenage game. So Stevenage was 0-0. My memory's not brilliant, so please correct me. But from that memory of that game, I thought for an hour Blackpool were very good. But then actually, as the game went on, if one team was going to score last 20 minutes, it was Stevenage. Stevenage, I think all Stevenage were waiting for something to happen, and it got to 60, 65 minutes, and they thought, hang on a minute, we can do something here. I think your manager made some brave substitutions, went quite attacking, and actually Blackpool probably 0-0. The end was a fair result, but after 60 minutes, Blackpool could have been 2 or 3 ahead, but we didn't score, and then Stevenage were certainly the more threatening as the game developed. So again, it just goes back to that killer instinct. Blackpool needs to have that nasty side where they can score the ugly goals. They can be a bit braver in possession. I think sometimes we're probably a bit safe, but we go backwards, sideways. I mean, on Tuesday we played Rotherham and we played Ash Fletcher and Jake Beasley up top. So you've not got a lot of mobility there. You've got 2 sort of target men really. Not going to make it happen. So then you over-reliance on your wide players, to make something happen. And Apter was actually rested on Tuesday, which was probably right. He has played a lot of football. So he was on the bench on Tuesday. But yeah, it's just been a frustrating season. It's just never quite. There's been sort of flashes. It's going to click into gear now. Blackpool are going to go on a bit of a run. You're almost waiting for it to happen. It's just not happened yet.
So it sounds from what you're saying, you're a little bit feeling, although you are on this unbeaten run on paper, you're not really feeling like the momentum's with you in terms of a playoff push.
No, I think the club as a whole, I think it feels like probably that every club says this, but I think the summertime, I think there's quite a few players that are contract. I think we were hoping for maybe 1 or 2 more signings in January. Obviously, we signed Tom Bloxham, but then we lost Kyle Joseph, and there was rumours of 1 or 2 coming in on deadline day. But I think Bruce has said, look, I'm not going to just sign players for the sake of it, which is certainly the right thing to do. Yeah. So I'm not saying the club have written off this season because we're still, 7-8 points. It can be done. But I think there's almost in the back of the mind, look, well, obviously, if we can't do it this season, then we'll have a refresh in the summer. And Bruce will have been here, obviously, nearly a season then. He can assess the squad. And then we can maybe just make, rather than going for quantity, it's just quality signings here and there. So I think, as Matt said, this division is so tight. I think it is really fine margins. I think last season was a completely different beast. I think it was a lot. It was, the top 3 or 4 were great, and the rest of it was a bit. I think this season, that mid-table, it's so fine. So it might just take one team to go on a run, and I hope it's Blackpool. But if you ask me now, I don't think top 6 is achievable. I think you're looking at top 10 is probably the best we can hope for, but you never know.
Well, best luck in terms of achieving a top 10 finish, and hopefully that can give you something to build on. Yeah. Rob, thanks so much for your time this evening. We really do appreciate you joining us, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, Rob.
So delighted to be joined by our final guest of the evening, Lep from the Here for the Lincoln podcast. Good evening, Lep. How are you, mate?
I am not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, we're really well. Thanks so much for joining us. Just talk to us about what's happening at Lincoln City, because they're a club that I went into this season with an enormous amount of faith in, and I still do have that faith in the way that Lincoln City are run and the key people there. At the same time, the form in the last 2 or 3 months hasn't been quite at the level that you've sort of set the standards for previously.
No, I think the easiest way to describe us is easily the most mid-table club in the league. We sit in 12th. You look at we played 30 games, we've won 10, we've drawn 10, we've lost 10. We've scored 36, we've conceded 35, and we got 40 points from that. We're just very, 1 week it can be amazing, the next week it can be really bad. But I think we've just sort of fallen into this sort of lull of sort of Groundhog Day each game, and it's just the same thing again and again. We'll have a good first 15 minutes. We then do nothing for the rest of the game. And then in the last 10 minutes, we sort of pitch up and say, hey, let's have another go. But there's just not a lot to be excited about. On paper, we've got a very good squad. There's some players in there that sort of, could be towards the top of the division, obviously with Arahan. But he's not quite kicked on and had the season he's had. And so we're sort of looking elsewhere in the squad for players to step up, and the players that, are expected to step up, the Moylands and the likes have been injured. And it's just not really clicked for us.
Matt, what have you made of Lincoln City when they faced Stevenage this season?
Yeah, the kind of 2 games that we've had against Lincoln have been very even. I remember the home game back in August where we lost 1-0 to Lincoln, and it was a really even game, and then we gave away a penalty. Lincoln scored, won the game, and then the 0-0 that we got, we were actually really happy with the point that day. Just after New Year, again, very even game. Lincoln missed an absolute sitter at the end, and then we had a sitter in the second half with one of our strikers as well. So very, very even game. But again, I think it's difficult. Like Lincoln had that incredible run at the back end of last season. They've got Joe Taylor, who's obviously, I know he's at Huddersfield, he's injured at the minute, but very, very difficult coming into this season with the league the way it is to continue that momentum. I kind of feel like if the league wasn't so strong, I think Lincoln would be in contention really inside those playoffs and actually looking to do better. So it's really, really difficult. Really oddly, actually, I've got a bet on with Jake Tong, my good pal, who's obviously involved with the podcast as well. And our bet is, I've bet him, we have a little bit of banter, but I've bet him that we'd finish above Lincoln and he's vice versa, done Lincoln above Stevenage. And we've got 20 quid on it. So if it does happen, make sure he pays up.
I'll rub it in for him. I'll make sure it'll get rubbed in. I always have a good bit of banter with Jake, and I think he's at the gym at the moment. So, yeah, not bad for him. But no, I remember the game against Stevenage, and that was sort of us. The one away was, I remember it was JJ McKinnon who came on. He's obviously gone to Burton now, and it was sort of that flare off the bench, just someone to come on and inject a bit of life into the game, and we sort of rely on that, around the 70th, 80th minute mark when the subs come on. That's when we look best because we've got fresh legs on the pitch and sort of kick on. And I remember it was him who won the penalty that day. And then the return game at our place, it is Makama who missed it. And Gab, how much I love Jovan. And it's stuff like that.
You're a Jovan.
I absolutely love Jove. But it was, it's stuff like that. And I think as well, we rely quite a lot on, sort of younger players. We've obviously started to build and have a lot more experience in the squad. Obviously bringing in Collins and Clucas in this, January window. But up until that point, it was only Adam Jackson and Derikwa who are 2 players over 30. So I think when you've got players in the squad like Jove, you leave yourselves prone to misses. I was doing the podcast with Jake earlier, and we got Leyton Orient this weekend, and Makama went on an amazing run in that game, burst past 2-3 players from midfield and ended up putting it wide. So he's just a sort of another cog in a very young squad that makes a lot of mistakes. And you look at our front line. I think the reason we brought in James Collins is to sort of just almost calm things down, because when you've got you got Freddie Draper in there, Bailey Cadamarchi in there, and Jovan Makama. The oldest of them is 20, and that's all we've had all season. Really, House has been on and off with injuries, and has, in the past 3-4 games, has started to play from midfield. And Tyler Walker, well, I'm not even sure he exists anymore. So it's just been a season where you've not quite had the right tools, and you look at clubs further up, they've got forwards who are firing in week in, week out. And they've also, got that experience to them, whereas, we've got 3 lads who are sort of young, learning their trade. And the only other person in their house, who's played is just not that type of striker. He's not a goal scorer. So when we're looking for a goal in the game, you sort of think, who is there?
Absolutely. What does Michael Skabala have to do to get Lincoln City on track for, let's say, a top 10 finish this season with a view to becoming a serious playoff contender again next?
I mean, a lot of our fans would say play 4 at the back. We've stuck with this 3 at the back over the past, however long, and it just doesn't seem to work, in my opinion.
Don't like Adam Jackson as an outside centre half.
It doesn't work. Especially when you've got Lewis Monsper on the bench, sat there week in, week out, and obviously he's got his injury problems, but still he's able to play Saturday to Saturday. And he's sort of sat there thinking, what's he got to do to get in the side? But I think a big thing, and something I feel, is we've got players who are sat on the bench, and when they come on, they're not going in and coming on into their natural position. Obviously, Eric Rings, sort of, I'd say for me, was our most exciting signing. Coming across from Sweden, this young winger with a lot of pace, an eye for goal. And he's been forced to play in, a wing back position every time Dariqua comes off. And you can just tell he's not comfortable with it. He wants to be further up the pitch and attack. And every time we've given him a chance to play further up, he's looked really good and looked really natural and able to really affect the game and impact it. And, he was great when he came on against Blackpool away at their place, and sort of the reason we got into that game, and grabbed a winner against Leyton Orient at our place. No, it was someone else. Some team in red, it was, but he grabbed a late winner, just being stood in the right place at the right time and in an attacking position. But we've seen in games where he's not played in an attacking position and he's played further back. He played there against James McLean at Wrexham, and you could just tell as the game went on how tired he got and wasn't used to doing that thing. And so we've not been able to utilise him properly because of the formation we play. The way I see it also is obviously on the other side, it's normally Dom Jeffries or Rico Hackett. And Rico Hackett, is an out-and-out attacking left winger, and Dom Jeffries was a centre midfielder. So instantly you're making people sort of shift about. And even if you go into the back 3, obviously Sean Rowan's become a pretty solid left-sided centre-back, but obviously he started his career at left back. And so it's almost like, why don't we just move Sean out to left back and drop Dariqua back in, who's, he's played 400 games as a right back, and then just have 2, solid centre backs. But for whatever reason, we've just sort of persisted with this formation. We started when Mark Kennedy was still in charge, back when Ipswich was still in the league. So you think, why are we still playing the same formation as a coach who's, done terribly since he's left us, and we've not really seen the best of it this season. So I think that's sort of one of the big things that we could do to get back on track. But I think as well, it's just having a bit more desire. I was watching, I can't even remember who we just played, Cambridge, and I predicted for the game that we were going to absolutely pepper them 6-0. Cambridge, bottom of the league, got so many good players out injured. They've conceded including us, 16 games in a row. And yet we went 1 goal up and just sort of held off, had no more desire to attack and win the game. And they grabbed a pretty rubbish deflected goal from a poor Gibbons cross. And for the rest of the game, I'd say Cambridge were in the driving seat. They were the ones who wanted to progress the game and sort of try and win it. And we were just sort of content, just letting the game mull over and, just sort of go stale. And I think it's as well when we attack, we sort of get the ball out wide, and you see with certain teams, obviously Birmingham when they came to our place. I'm sure you know how well you guys move the ball around the box, Gab, and it's poking and prodding, and we don't do that. We don't poke and prod and we don't move it. We just sort of get it out wide, get it into Rico Hackett, and then knock it back for Sean Rowan to whip it in, and nothing comes of it because we haven't got, an immense target man striker. Freddie Draper's not that, and James Collins isn't that tall. So the ball comes out, we pick it up and we recycle it, and we cross it in again and again.
Yeah, he's not really a crossing striker,
happens.
James Collins. He's good if he gives the ball to his chest or feet, but he's not really a target man. Matt, do you have something in your mind?
Well, I was just going to say, actually, when Lep was speaking there, it's really I think it's really difficult for Lincoln, isn't it? Because, you're coming into this season and there's a lot of expectancy based, around the fact that they've had such a brilliant end to last season. And, with Skabala and how well of a job that he did at that point. And, again, I remember speaking to Jake about this and, I was saying to Jake, what do you honestly think for this season? And it was, we'll be in the playoffs. And I thought, wow. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because I don't think Lincoln are having a bad season. I think they're having a normal season. And that, in this league, I think is brilliant. I think if you're having a normal season in this league and you're 11th, 12th, 10th, whatever, I think you're having a really good season. But
it's worth remembering that, isn't it? It's like it feels like a disappointment, but that's almost a compliment to how far Lincoln City have come.
That's what I think it is. And they're having a normal season, and I think it's been difficult for them. I think it's been really difficult coming into the season, having that expectancy. Hasn't played out the way it's played out because the league's so good. And they're in the position they're in. But I still think they're doing really well. I don't think I might be wrong. It's probably Lincoln fans, like Lep has said there, they want to see more desiring games when they're playing certain sides. But I think overall, I think they're doing very well, I think.
Yeah. In terms of what we have, in terms of budget, we're I think we ranked 19th in terms of budget for the playing squad. So, for what we've put in, we're not doing too bad. You're down there with teams in the relegation zone in terms of what they're putting in, and there's teams in the relegation zone. You look at Peterborough are just on the brink of it, who's probably spent 2-3 times what we can, and so there's sort of a sense of overachievement in that way, and I think it has always been for us overachieving and sort of getting the right loans and the right players into the squad. It seems every week now I'm getting reminded that Morgan Rogers and Brennan Johnson were with us at the right time. And that wasn't because, you look at it now, you'd think must have spent so much to get those two into the club, but we didn't. They were normal loans that fitted into our structure, but we just got the right players. And I think, Jez George, obviously sort of, our head of, signings and everything, our director of football, has a lot of weight on his shoulders, and a lot of people go after him, saying signings aren't this, signings aren't that. And I think that's mainly because of how, we've brought in so many good players who've gone on to do better things over the past few seasons. And there's such a high standard set when in reality, what he's working with and what he's trying to do, season in, season out, it is the same thing. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. And, to guarantee, the quality of player that we're expecting, the Joe Taylors, the Sorensens, Morgan and Brennan, who've gone on to do amazing things, you've got to spend money to guarantee those kind of players. Whereas if you gamble with it, we got Joe Gardner in, obviously, on loan, who obviously had a red card against Cambridge, which was never a red card. But he's a gamble and, someone who's under the radar and not someone who's been talked about as a huge talent, but has that same, sort of promise that he could go on to do something similar. But has completely flown under the radar in terms of, teams that, looking for those top talents and trying to guarantee that they've got a League One quality, player. So I think it's part of it is gambling and being smart with our money. And for, what we put in, obviously we'd like to put in more because then you can guarantee that you're going to be further up the league. Birmingham have put so much money in and they've guaranteed that they're going to be, going up this season. and the likes of Wrexham and Wickham, and they've put money in to try and guarantee those things. Whereas I think with us, there's no guarantee. It's for us, it's put in money. Are you putting it all on red, or are you putting it all on black?
Of course.
And sometimes it pays off, and we'll have a really good season, like we did last season. And like the COVID season, and sometimes it's going to be a season, like we did under Kennedy, and like we're probably going to do this season. We're going to finish around, 10th, 11th, 12th, and take what the good bits are, which I think will be the Arahans. It'll be Draper. I think Freddie Draper is going to really kick on this season and sort of take those bits, and we can move them on for a big profit. I think we all expect Arahan to move on for a big 7-figure fee. And I think, Freddie Draper obviously has just signed a new 4-year deal that'll, keep him here till 3.5, I think. So he's obviously put a lot of money on his price tag, and at 20, and he's scoring goals and stuff like that. So it's for us, do we keep those people here next season and hope that they can push us forward, or do we, if the right offer comes in, move them on and then be able to put money into the squad so we can guarantee those players? Because if we don't have those signings, that are cheap, we're not able to operate as we do. And if we don't sell those players that we've taken a gamble on and a risk of, you can't guarantee anything. And I think the thing with us is that we've lost so many good players on freeze over the past few seasons. You look at Regan Poole as someone who was immense for us and just moved on for nothing. And obviously with Lucas Jensen and Lars Sorensen moving on in the summer, we got probably about half what they were worth because they only had a year left on their contracts, and we didn't quite.
I think that's a really important
that
thing, Lex, that you're able to get the right value for players and cash in on them when they've got a few years left on their contract. Lep, thanks so much for joining us this evening. It's been wonderful to get your insight on Lincoln City. So keep up the great work on the Here for the Lincoln podcast.
Thank you. Have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Yeah, top man.
Cheerio.
So Matt, talk to me about Stevenage then, Matt. Because the season, absolute clean sheet monsters this year, right?
Yeah, 14 clean sheets, Gab. Do you know what? Can I just say, it kind of makes me really proud, actually. I've been sitting here and listening to other people talk passionately about their teams. There's me sitting here like a little kid, just loving mine. And, it's been a crazy season, I think. Look, we come into this season, I said to you back in the summer, we were putting together this squad. Obviously, we kept a lot of the original players, but built a new squad with, new signings coming to join this original group. And Alex Avell used that phrase of sprinkling a bit of icing and sugar on an already excellent cake to make it better. We had to do that because of the division. Yeah. And I think, look, we started really well. And unfortunately, we just got injuries to big players. And Alex had to change the style and system that we really wanted to play with the squad. It's not just the big players that have been out, injured players that are fit now have also missed. We had an injury crisis, but we still did brilliantly whilst having those injuries with many great wins, great performances. I look and think, and this is without the big players, we beat the likes of Barnsley, Charlton, Wrexham at home. We beat Stockport. We beat Mansfield away at the time. That was our first away. We were right up there. Excellent performances against Huddersfield away and Lincoln and Peterborough at the time. We've done really well. Great performances against Blackpool and Lincoln on the road. And we've done brilliantly. And what we've seen of late is a lot of those big players have returned. The Dan Sweeneys, the Appareys, the Charlie Goods. And we all believed that when they returned, we'd be a different side. And that's what's happened. We went to Barnsley and were brilliant and played some of the best football I've seen all season. Should have won by more. Won it in the last minute with Dan Kemp, who's been brilliant this season, probably player of the season.
Yeah.
And then went to Wrexham and just, I could not believe what I was watching. It was, I would go far aside, Villa aside, I would go far aside. That was probably the best away performance I've ever seen from a team for us in the Football League. It was the football, the passing. We dominated Wrexham. We were 2-0 up in 15 minutes. It should have been 3 or 4 at half time. We could not believe what we were watching and come out and were brilliant second half. And I think we started to see all the things that we believed in with this squad that Alex Ravel put together. And, you know, Revs has got a lot of stick. A lot of people have said we're not going to do well because it's not Evans and it's Alex Ravel. And I think a lot of people didn't really do their homework on our squad and how brilliant this squad is for this season and the future. And I think of late, we've got a little bit leggy. Some of the games are caught up with us and we've lost the last two. But it's been a magnificent season. 40 points. We're pretty much safe. And what an achievement for this squad and the management team. And I've loved it. It's been one of my favourite seasons. I think we've been brilliant this season.
Yeah, certainly have. Who do you see sneaking into the playoffs then, Matt? Do you give Borough a squeak?
I've got to say yes. Come on, let's get it in there, Gab. I've got to say yes. Like, do you know what? Like, if I'm truly honest, I think for us, it's just about getting the 50 points, getting over that line and securing. So I think next season, by the way, I think we can have a really competitive, exciting season with who's coming up, with who's coming down potentially. Hopefully we can add to this squad and get even better. I really believe.
Get Birmingham out of the way.
Oh, yeah, just go up, Gab. Go up. Save us all the asshole. Although we did have a cracking little game against you in the Virtue last week. That was good fun. But, till Stansfield come on and just ruined it all for everyone. But no, like I think next season's a huge season for us. But who's getting in the playoffs? Look, I think if we're gonna get in the playoffs, we've got to score more goals, number one. That's been something that I think a lot of people have said we haven't done a lot this season. Although the last 2 months we have scored a lot more.
It's been a bit better, hasn't it? Yeah, with Kemp really coming into form.
Yeah, you got to think 3 against Bristol Rovers, 3 against Wrexham, 4 against Exeter. We have been scoring goals and playing brilliant. Yeah. But I think we're going to need to just keep putting those performances that we saw against Barnsley, Wrexham and Exeter just regularly. And if we do that, look, we've got a chance. I mean, we've got games in hand. And over the next couple of weeks, we've got Peterborough at home, we've got Burton, we've got Shrewsbury, we've got Cambridge, play a lot of the bottom sides.
On paper, winnable games, yeah.
Exactly. So, look, never say never. For me, I'd just be proud that we start it. Look, I think for us, more than playoffs, I think top 10 is a fantastic finish. And
if you could get to top 10, that'd be amazing.
I agree. And I think if we got top 10, that is like finishing in a playoff position for us, because that is a magnificent.
Successive top 10 finishes in League One for Stevenage Football Club would be an astonishing achievement, because I think you had a one-off season in, I want to say 09-10 under Graham Westley, where you got to 68 points or something like that and snuck into the playoffs. But to get successive top 10 finishes in League One would really be quite something. So, I
agree. And by the way, just to add to that as well, you know, a top 10 in League One with Alex Ravel, but with Alex Ravel and Scott Cuthbert. And this is the big thing.
And Neil Bamfield.
Neil Bamfield. That management team been brilliant. But this is the thing. They would have done it. They've managed a team for a full season in League One and this league, and they've finished there. So Alex Ravel is well into the job now. It's not like...
Do you know what? I honestly, genuinely, nearly call you Matthew there. I don't know what's happening.
Oh, you better Matthew me, guys.
Matthew, that's very formal.
I'll let you do it.
Do you know what, though, Matt? I felt like even when, and sometimes you can read too much into press conferences, right? Because it's all about the proof in the pudding. But I did get a feeling with the dynamic between Alex Ravel. I liked the feeling that I got from Revs' go back to his first press conference in June, because first of all, he was very honest about his previous spell, which I really liked. And I also saw a real sort of chemistry and camaraderie between him and Scott Cuthbert. And I also saw a value that Neil Bamfield could bring with his experience, something different to both of them. And I think the three of them, they've got something. So I'm so excited. I think you've got a core of 4 or 5 players that can really perform to very high standards at this level. And if you can bring in another 3 or 4 in the summer to sort of add to that, then I think it could be an exciting season next year.
Yeah, most definitely. I think, and also to go along with Revs, you know, I remember when, I was at that press conference. I snuck off on my lunch break to go to it, and I remember sitting there with Mr. Donnelly and a few of us watching, and I felt excited. You know, he just sounded like he'd learned He'd been tutored by Evans. He picked the right people. Scotty Cuthbert's a legend at the club, but has got a great relationship with Revs, proper football person. And Neil Bamfield, he's a proper football person on the grass, in training with the players. He's so experienced. And I actually think you could actually see how good of a manager Alex Ravel was just by the squad that he put together. And I said this to the chaps. I said, do you know what? He's going to prove he's a great manager. You know, you don't bring players like Charlie Good and Dan Phillips, Jake Young, who was wanted by literally everyone, it seemed like, Dan Kemp, if you're not a top manager. You know, these players don't get sold jobs by your typical managers. Charlie Good is a top level player. He's played at Brentford. He's played Championship. I know he didn't have a great time at Wigan because of injuries, but you don't follow. They will only follow a certain type of person in the footballing world. And I think you could see he was going to be a great manager. But I'm so happy it's worked out. We've had a magnificent season. We've still got 17 to play, of course, but we've had a magnificent season, and Revs has done it. And I'm almost like really excited for next season because I'm like, you know, it's the big one. Recruit well, go get up there and compete. But I love this team. It's my favourite side, and I'm really proud of him. It's been an absolute pleasure going to watch him every week and being invested. And I just want us to finish well, you know, set up a platform for next season, and you know, let's get better and compete next season again for our third season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got this was a year to get his feet under the desk, and he's well and truly done that. So it sets it up beautifully for next season if mid-table is, or this season is to be. Go on then, Matt. Predict your top six for us. If we were to exclude Stevenage, who would be? You
threw the exclusion in there. I was going to go us in sixth. Bring it on. We're bringing it out. The revolution's on, but excluding us. Okay, I reckon. I'll start from top to bottom. I think. Do you know what? I actually think I don't think Wrexham will do it. I think Wickham might just pip them. But you look at Wrexham and you look at the new signings and you think, oh my God, you know, got Jay Rodriguez and Smith. And so you look at them, really, Wrexham should do it. But I don't think they will. I think Wickham. I think it'll be Birmingham, Wickham. Yeah. And then I think your players will be Wrexham, Charlton, Huddersfield.
Did Bolton get in there?
It's a toss-up between Bolton and Stockport.
And then Leyton Orient as well.
No, I think for me, I think Stockport might keep him. I think it'll be the teams that are in there now.
So Bolton miss out. There you go.
Yeah, I think Bolton, I think they've just had such a mad... I know Schumacher's obviously a top manager and they've had such a mad season. I don't know if they'll get in. I really don't. Look, if they do, I think potentially maybe Stockport might flip out, might swap places. Maybe Stockport might fall away at the end. Yeah, but at the minute, I mean, Stockport, I thought when they lost Louis Barry, they wouldn't be the same team, and they look even better.
Yeah.
So that would be my five. I don't think Leyton Orient will make it. I think Leyton Orient have been brilliant, by the way. I think they'll miss out. Stockport or Bolton, one of them will either be
interchangeable. Interesting. Yeah. Well, there we have it. Matt, thanks so much for joining me, man. Really appreciate you co-hosting the League One podcast with us this evening and representing the mighty Borough.
As always, mate. As always got it on. Biggest season.
Absolutely. Thanks to all our guests this evening. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate League One podcast. We'll see you again next week.